Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a trial judge, a judge at first instance. So I preside over criminal trials, family law trials, civil trials. We have a divided trial court system in my jurisdiction, and I'm in the senior trial court, so we call it murder, rape, and pillage as the general nature of the jurisdiction that I have. I'm focusing my remarks primarily to judges. I know there are others here, but I'm talking from the perspective of a judge and about the particular challenge that judges face in adjudicating claims that involve discrimination against gay people. I'm going to be concrete, and I hope I'm going to be practical. I'm also going to be brief. I'm going to start with a hypothetical scenario that might happen in Montenegro. Imagine a beautiful summer day, perhaps like today, in downtown Montenegro. Imagine a cafe. Imagine a young woman sitting at the cafe having a coffee. Perhaps she's doing something on her iPod. She's by herself. Imagine a young man coming up and seeing her there and seeing, sits down, orders a coffee, and starts to talk to her. They talk for 15 or 20 minutes, and the conversation goes well. Imagine that the young man, perhaps at this point, touches the young woman, maybe on the hand, maybe on the leg, lingers just long enough to send a message to the young woman that he's attracted to her. Now, this is a story as old as mankind. Nothing unusual about this. It could end many different ways, right? They could be married for 25 years, so they may never see each other again. Nothing unusual about this scenario at all. But on this occasion, the young woman looks at the man with abject horror on her face. She pushes her chair back, and she lunges at him and attacks him and stabs him with a knife. Stunned onlookers pull them apart. The man's taken off to the hospital. He's all right. They fix him up. But then she, of course, is brought before you, the trial judge. Right? Why did you attack this man? Well, I was just so utterly revolted at the mere thought that he would find me attractive, that he would think I would have any interest in him. That I didn't plan this. I was overcome with a panic and a revulsion. And so I attacked him. Now, what are you going to do? You might send her for a psychiatric evaluation, perhaps. You might think there was something wrong with her. But you would say to her, assuming she wasn't mentally ill, "Madam, that's not an excuse for attacking somebody with a knife. You can't do that." Now, let's change the facts of the scenario. And instead of a young man sitting down and making a pass at a young woman, it's a young man who sits down and makes a pass at a young man. And the response is as I've described, that the person who's receiving this attacks the man who's made the pass at him, stabs him with a knife, and he's brought before you, and you have a trial in front of you. And the victim says to you, "I was revolted. I was stunned. I was surprised. This was an insult to my manhood that he would even think that I would be interested, that he would make such a gesture towards me." And you're now the trial judge, and you have to decide. And you've got two questions you have to decide, right? The first question is this a criminal offense? Is this a defense for what this man did? Was he justified in reacting this way? And if you think for even a moment that maybe he was justified in doing this, then you are discriminating. Because the situations objectively are precisely the same. They are precisely the same. Now, you've got a second question that you have to ask, which is, if this is an unjustified and illegal attack, what's the penalty? Now, when you come to penalty, of course, you must consider the circumstances of the perpetrator as well, and you will have sympathy for him, because he's been raised in an environment where this is the common perception of what it means to be male. He's a product of his environment. It would be nice if we lived in a society. Imagine what the world would be like if women were justified in repelling sexual advances by murdering the men who made them. I mean, we would live in a very different world. So why is it that men are justified in doing that? And the reason is that that's how they've been raised. Now, how you're going to decide the case is up to you. But I come back to the first point that I made to you, that if you think for a minute that that man was justified legally in a physical attack on the other man for that reason, then you are discriminating. Now, let me give you another hypothetical example. You have a heterosexual couple, man and a woman, walking down the street, they're in market, and they're holding hands. Nothing unusual about that. One wouldn't expect there'd be any kind of reaction to it. You have a same-sex couple doing that, and a group of young men assault them. Maybe they just yell at them. Maybe they attack them. Now, that gets to court in front of you, and the excuse is, we agree that everybody's shouldn't be discriminated against, but this is a public display. I mean, why are these people rubbing our face in this? We find it very upsetting. If you think for a minute, that that is a justification for attacking those people, then you are discriminating, right? These are easy concepts. They're clear concepts. And my guess is that some of you have trouble with that, right? And I ask you to be, and as trial judges, we all take oaths, right, to apply the law fairly, evenly, and impartially, but we're also products of the society in which we live. And one of the things that we do as trial judges is to suppress those reactions that we all have that we know they're just part of us, but they're not fair. And I ask all of you to reflect within yourselves about how you react to those very basic fact scenarios. Because, ladies and gentlemen, those are easy cases. Those are straightforward cases. And how would you decide them? Now, I want to come back to a couple of things that were said earlier today to put this back into context. Before I do that, I want to thank the government of Montenegro for the invitation to be here today and for the wonderful hospitality that we've all received. This was touted as a judicial training session. I want to be clear that you cannot be trained for these issues in an hour. I taught courses in this area at the law school that ran for 13 weeks, and they were called introductory courses, right? This is hard stuff. And over the course of the last day and today, what you've been hearing are great abstractions, the principles that are to be applied. But that's not what the life of a trial judge is about, is it? I mean, of course, we must know the law. We must know what the principles are. But the life of a trial judge are these very concrete conflicts that come between us. And a point that I want to make absolutely clear to you is that your role is vital in making this work in Montenegro. Because you are the ones who must establish what these standards are going to be. And if it's anything like it is back where I am, when you make a decision, you have to give reasons, right? Unlike our friends, the politicians, maybe they give reasons, maybe they give justifications. They have two advantages over us. One is they don't have to do that. They can sort of sidestep the issue if they wish. The other thing is that, of course, politicians don't have to decide. They may decide, this is not really a good time to deal with this issue. But you, the poor trial judge, the case comes to your court, you must decide it. And if you're doing your duty, you have to give reasons why you're deciding it the way that you are. And it's hard. And it takes a particular courage to do it when you know that the society in which you're living will not be happy with what you've done. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Montenegro of today, as I've heard it described, the general sentiment in the population would be to consider gay people worse than murderers. As I understand it, you have one person in Montenegro who's out. You have a highly repressed society where it is extremely dangerous to be gay. And for you as judges to do the right thing will take courage. But that is the only way that you will make progress. I wanted to say these things as directly and as candidly as I can because it's the elephant in the room. You have a major, major challenge ahead of you to make this work. It's not your fault. It's not the government's fault. It's a product of probably hundreds of years, but certainly generations. It's a social phenomenon. Many people have said this is a top-down process. It's not just top-down from the government to the people. It's clearly top-down from Europe to Montenegro. And I have a sense of the Montenegrin people that, you know, if people go to them and say, you should now believe X, that will go down extremely well, whatever it is you're telling them they should believe. Nobody likes to be told what to believe. It has to be a matter of persuasion. And the persuasion has to be on the basis of reason, with leadership from persons that people respect. And the buck is going to stop squarely on the judiciary. Now, the final point that I want to make before I sit down, and I hope we have some time for questions afterwards, is that this will never work in Montenegro if there is not visibility of gay people, if you don't have anybody who's out. In Canada, where I come from, we have gay cabinet ministers, senior ones. The deputy premier of my province, who's the number 2 politician in a province of 13.5 million people, we've had 2 of them who were gay. They were extremely respected. We have gay doctors, we have gay lawyers, we have gay journalists, we have gay plumbers, we have gay swimmers. No, we're not taking over. But the point is that there are a great many people, and the more people who are out in every walk of life, the more normalized it becomes. And over the course of the 30, 35 years that these issues have been played out in Canada, public opinion has swung enormously. And the reason is that when they come to know people, they stop hating them. Now, to make this point as concretely as I can, sex and sexual orientation are subjects that are academically weak. I will bet that not a single one of you has ever read a book that studies these topics. Why read a book on sex? We all know how to do that. Now, on the other hand, if you wanted to become good at running, you'd hire a coach and you'd read everything there was on it, or skiing, or any other human activity. And it's an extremely weak area of study. But if you actually look into the limited research that's available, it's absolutely clear that homosexuality has existed in every society. It exists throughout humankind. 2 to 3% is the likely figure, although that's still debated. And it exists in most mammalian species. My guess is that most of you didn't know that. As I say, we can't do judicial training in the space of an hour, but I can give you at least that introduction to it. Last point I'll make as I'm sitting down is that Judge Hofmeister indicated that it was important that you have gay people on the bench. I guess I'm your token gay judge for the week. Anyway, thank you for your attention.